Now, Tom, you go into politics.
Well, I've always been interested in politics, but I've
Mm.
never got involved till now.
Mm. And when did you get involved?
Well, I suppose I was always inclined to look at the world around me and figure that, there was so much disparity
Mm.
and there were all kinds of, if you like, filters along the road of life. And certain people in certain areas couldn't aspire to a lot of those things like a proper education. Even we still have it on the trains. We have a first and second class system, which I can't conceive of why we need that, especially when you consider that the revolutionaries, especially James Connolly, wanted a classless society.
Mm.
A socialist republic is what he wanted. And he was a very, very important man in that revolution, apart from the leader, Pádraig H. Pearse.
So which party are you associated with?
People before profit,
People.
socialist,
Mm.
the left.
And what's their mantra?
Their mantra is for a fairer society,
Mm.
a caring, sharing society, to put people's welfare first, and the state having a duty of care, which, from where I'm standing now, looking back, the state did not carry out its duties and its function as a protector of the individual.
Is that recently or always?
Practically always.
Mm.
They treated some people preferentially over others, and that to me is not fair.
Mm. And do you think that will ever change, will it? I mean, it has always been that way.
Well, the way I look at it, it won't change unless we change it. We, the people.
Mm.
And we have
Well,
to
has it
get
changed in the last 50 years in Ireland then, with education and health and jobs and...
It had moved up a bit, but it's now going into reverse because the grants and aid for third level are being withdrawn or increased to make it more difficult for working class people to get a crack at a proper education to university level.
Well, is it not the working class people that get the grants, whereas the richer people have to pay their own fees?
Well, that's only balancing out the disparity that's there. It's only fair to think you subsidise people who want to do it. And as I put it today in my newspaper release, education is a right. It's not a privilege by the state. You have a right to a proper education. And if the state was properly structured, everybody would be entitled to have that right.
And I have this question when I hear that who said that? That was the right.
Well, I go back to the provisional government, which in its statement in a very short and terse way said, we must cherish all the children of the nation equally. And that is the precept by which we must move. And it behoves all governments from the foundation of the state to carry on that principle, to try to achieve it because it is desirable and it's important for the future of this state.
Well, is it possible for nearly all the children of this country to be educated as far as they wish to go?
It's not at the moment. It's not indeed.
Because it's all free. Primary and secondary is all free. And third level would be grant-aided.
Well, it needs to be grant-aided, but recently there has been a shift in this.
Well, we got into a bit of trouble financially.
Yeah,
A lot of trouble financially.
Well, I know we're in trouble financially, but if we didn't give away our natural resources, these resources, which are non-renewable, are there to provide sustenance and development for the people. If, for instance, we decided not to give away the silver in Tara and Tina, we would have enormous numbers of jobs created on the spin-offs from those. Instead of that, we're just we're like West Africa now. We're providing the raw materials for the more advanced countries, and they gain the advantage due to the treachery of our government. Government should not mine anything until we're ready to fully develop it.
And were we, at the time we gave it away, were we fit to extract it ourselves?
Well, in terms of mining, we certainly can. I mean,
But then in the 50s and 60s when this was...
I'm pretty sure we always had good engineers and people who, if you had a state task force, would develop that, rather than this idea. We always seem to be getting somebody from outside to do the things that the Irish people are well qualified to do themselves.
And why was that, do you think?
a lack of confidence by the government in their own people.
Mm.
And in recent history, we can see the contempt they've shown for their people by the way they've treated people on the water. I mean, what decent democracy would ignore 2.5 or 20 or 30,000 people in the great city of Dublin marching because they can't afford to pay for water? And more particularly, they do not agree and will not permit privatisation of water.
Mm.
We've had enough of this treachery, as I call it.
So you're against the water charges, yeah?
I'm against.
No, you, the
I'm
party.
saying our philosophy on water charges are simply this: if you're very wealthy, you pay more than somebody who has virtually nothing. The old age pensioner, marginalised people, can hardly survive at the moment, and I would think for the amount of water they consume, they should have it as a right.
Mm.
The industrial users of water, nobody talks about them, and the provision of water services as well. They're all being provided by tax funds from the people. The big users of water are not paying an appropriate amount for the water they're consuming. Fair is fair, but the old age pensioner shouldn't be approached and told you have to pay 200 or 300 euros a year, which is what would be happening if we didn't march against it.
Would it be fairer if it was means tested?
Well, that would be the basis on which we argue, because if you're in a position to pay, you pay in relation to your ability to pay. And the same with the health service. The health service should be available on demand for everybody, no matter what income. But if people want to go and have private insurance and private hospitals, let them have them.
But
But
isn't that what
it
they,
is
isn't that
not up
what,
to the taxpayer to provide private hospitals.
isn't that what they do? They,
No,
they
not
go
at
private
the
insurance, like the BHI and Aviva and all these people. That's a cost.
That's fine. But there's also a situation here that most of the equipment in our hospitals is paid by the taxpayer. Now, what do consultants pay towards the cost of them? Nothing.
Well, private hospitals pay for their own, don't they?
They don't. They use the major hospitals, the regional hospitals and the centres of excellence. The equipment that is there is provided by the people, paid by taxpayers. They should make a contribution to the refurbishing of hospitals for X-ray equipment, magnetic imaging, just about any other major electronic device in the hospital. They should be paying for the use of public-owned equipment.
Mm. And what else have you got on your agenda?
We, well, I mean, the leaflet there,
What did you
I
vote?
just refer to it. The health system, let's see if I can. Our main thrust, apart from keeping water in local control, will be in the area of health. We would like to bring the number of hospital beds in Ireland up to 18,000, which is more or less the European average. But not just get beds. We need more people as well to man them. We want to take a look at the hierarchy in terms of administration, which I believe is very top heavy. And we need to reopen wards, definitely. And we want a national health service, one service, national health service that's available to everyone, based on their needs, not on their ability to pay.
Would it be like the English one?
Based very much on that. I think it
Well,
was
they're
an Oran Bevan was the man who brought that into existence, and it was a brilliant idea because it was a fair system that everybody would be treated and respected properly.
But they're finding it a very heavy financial burden over there, aren't they?
They are, but they too need a root and branch restructuring of the chain of command in the UK. It's like here, there's a lot of waste.
The French have one of the best in the world, haven't they?
I believe they have, but I'm not that familiar, but I thought the Danish model would be more in line with the way we work.
The French model is pulling them down now financially.
It probably is,
Yeah,
but the Danish one is sustainable and is obviously working very well.
What else are you on about there?
We'll have a look across here.
You have a lot of items actually, haven't you? Yeah.
Oh, we're covering every aspect. But we would also like to see a government with a bit of backbone, with some leadership qualities. to go into Europe and renegotiate the fishing rights around our coast. It's a crying shame. I understand when I queried one of the ministers of Fine Gael many years ago about why did we give our fishing rights away, I was told we would get a better deal for farming. And at the present time, looking at farming, I don't think we got any deal at all, because farming too is in crisis most of the time with regard to payments.
Well, did farming have any good years?
They might have had a few good years, but we need to guarantee that our producers, our food producers, our farmers are protected. The producer is the most important. And the likelihood is, under the regime we have now, that a lot of farmers will go out of business. And the state itself is a problem in the sense that if a farmer wants to extend his lands or buy more land, more often than not he's in conflict with people like Quilcha, because they will offer a huge price, taxpayers' money, against his estimated reasonable price for the land. He cannot compete in acquiring land at the market rate because they actually will outbid him. And I think that's a pity. We'll have to remove that conflict of interest between Quilcha and the small farmer.
Do you have any wishes for Mayo, County Mayo?
Most of all, I have great wishes for North Mayo because it is the scene and the greatest plight of emigration of any part of Mayo. I'd love to see industry sited there that would create employment to keep those people at home. I recognise that every child born in this country should have the choice of a right to live in his country with a reasonable lifestyle and a decent wage and decent living conditions. And that would be my greatest wish, but not just for Mayo, for any marginalised area of this country, County Leitrim for instance. I'd like to think that its population would grow and that there would be sufficient activity in industry, farming, fishing, to keep people employed and happy in their own country. Because it is, after all, our country, and if we don't cherish it, we lose it.
But they seem to have difficulty getting people to come down here. They all want to stay in Dublin, all the big employers.
The big employers may do, but I don't believe it's a problem nowadays with the communication links we have. Oh, and that's another area that I think, communications. We're all about broadband at the moment. Eamon O'Queen wants a gigahertz bandwidth. That's grand. But aren't we going down the same old path again with the way we've been doing it so far? We're getting outside contractors, namely Italy or somewhere else, to lay the cables, connect up the terminals, and then decide to lease it to us for anything up to 50 years. Why isn't the state getting an organisation together to install these cables, fibre optics, or optic fibres I should say, to link up broadband? Gigahertz may be better, but to own it so that the proceeds of that cable or whatever device is being used, if it's microwave, come back and devolve into the central funds in the exchequer so it's available and reduces tax. We're being bled dry in this country if people wake up to see it. Natural resources have been swallowed out of it. Our banking institutions are controlled from abroad, obviously. We have no autonomy within this republic.
So, Tom, will you get involved in a coalition? Will you support a coalition of
We would...
Fianna Fáil led, Fine Gael led, Sinn Féin led?
The essential thing for people before profit is to have our policies carried out. And whatever way we can achieve that, we will do so. But we will not enter a coalition that ignores the politics of the people, socialist policies, so that every citizen gets a decent treatment and that nobody is excluded in a new republic.
Is that possible?
It is possible.
For every citizen to be equal?
It is possible to treat people equally. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Equality, well, we're all different sizes and shapes and different strength and different health status. You can't have equality in everything, but at least the state, as the trustee of the people, should make sure that every citizen is not denied their rights. And there are one of the things that is the biggest problem at the moment is homelessness. There's no social houses being built. Fianna Fáil, even though I never subscribed to them, in their heyday, I've seen the estates they built here. They were conscious that we needed social housing. Nothing has changed. We still need social housing. People need to have a roof over their head. And they don't need to be, or shouldn't be allowed to be, exploited by get-rich owners of large flat complexes and buildings, because that's going on.
Well, do you think the state should supply houses to everybody?
Not supply. People should be able to acquire houses,
Acquire
pay for them, because nobody values anything they don't pay for.
Mm.
But at least have affordable housing for people. I mean, Father Bohan down in Clare had a rural housing scheme going, and he built, through contractors, a series of houses which were affordable, and some of my friends bought them. And they were perfectly good houses, 2-3 bedroom, with all facilities, at a cost that people could afford. Housing should not be a speculative thing anyway, because it's a basic need. Everyone must have a house, a place to lie down and a place to have privacy.
Do you believe in the market?
I don't believe in the market.
No.
The market is dominating our life too much. That's capitalism, and it's a very nasty business. Because what happens here in this country, I often think, Oliver, people confuse capitalism with democracy. And the two things are totally, they're as different as chalk and cheese, and even more than that. Because democracy is about equality of treatment. Capitalism is about greed, the survival of the fittest. If you can't get it by argument, kill for it. That's capitalism.
And can you see a
And
place
Shell
for?
had proved that in the acquisition of oil in Nigeria.
Can you? Would you support communism?
No. Socialism is a different animal altogether.
And what's the difference?
Communism is a man has 2 cows. The state takes both and gives them back some milk. A socialist is one that has 2 cows. He keeps one and gives the other to his neighbour.
On the canvas, Tom. Yeah.
I've been on the canvas, as they say, on the hustings, and it's been pretty good. It's been interesting, and people are really charming, really.
And will they talk to you? They will.
Of course they do.
And will they enter into discussion?
They will indeed, and they'll tell us the problems they have, and we're well aware of them before they tell us, because we have seen it happening. And as I say, we're getting good reception everywhere.
And what's the most common problem you come across now?
People with medical cards taken away from them. People with handicapped children